Hi all, so welcome to this channel once again and with a very interesting topic here and uh, which is identity columns in DDL in IBM AS400. So in this database modernization, that is DDS to DDL or DDS to SQL topic series, this video will help you or will let you know what identity column is and why we will be using this, because this identity column is not available in the DDS. So there are some extra things or extra data types or which are available in the DDL which we do not get in the DDS. So that's why we will be focusing on DDL here. So let's identity column is something uh, which contains a unique value always, so for every row. So this now always go for a primary key option. This column always go for a primary key option in a table because it contains always a numeric, or you can say integer value, which is always unique for every new record we insert. So basically system will generate a unique number for this, but once we go in detail in this identity column, I'll let you know what we can do with the identity columns. So the data type of the identity columns could be a small integer or big integer only. So it cannot be character, graphic or something else. It must be small int, integer or the big integer. So let's start with the demo. Let me create some DDL script. So let me reuse the existing one. So I don't need these long names or these things because I already covered the same thing in my this video: table long name, column long name, record format and all these things. So you can watch my this video to have this info. So for now I'll be using the short table name. Okay, I won't be using the long column names as well, and I don't need this record format for now, since I'm not converting any DDS to DDL, and I don't need all these things that are uh, column heading or the text fields, and I don't need this as well. I'm not renaming the file. So this is the simple DDL where I have field 1 of character 10 and field 2 of decimal 2, and this is not null with default, and that's a unique key and that's not a unique key. Now I want to add an identity column to my table. So that identity column might be a primary key or may not. It depends upon us what we want to do with that, if you want to keep that as a primary key or not. So the first thing is the name of the identity key column. So the column name could be anything like field 1, field 2, anything else. So I would be keeping that as id call. That's the short name, so I'm not using any long name here. Then the type, so I would be keeping the type as big integer, and then there are few things. So the keyword we will be using is generated always or generated by default. So let's start with them. So first thing is generated always. As identity, so we can have this column here in the DDL table. Let me compile this. That's the library name and the source physical file DDL8. So you can see the object gets created. Now we can check the DSPFFD information of this. So let me show you id call. It's an identity column information generated always. Original start with this, current start with this, increment by this, min value this, max value this, cycle yes or no. So number of value or to catch this, and field 1 and field 2. So this is a identity column and all this information. This is the maximum value which we can reach up to. Now let's try to insert some data. Insert into, let me insert. I can't provide the null values to all these things. Let me provide some value to the identity column so that I could tell you what it is. Value cannot be specified to for generated always column id call. So that's what I want to show you here, that we cannot provide a value to the identity column, but we have a way that I'll be discussing it later through some other video, that how we can provide value to the identity column where we have used generated always as identity. So when we use the keyword generated always as an identity with the identity column, what happens, we cannot provide the value directly to the column. So it means all the values will be system generated. So if I try to insert the records in the other columns, let's say D, so you can see I'm able to insert the records. Let's select some records. So you can see we have identity column as one populated. So we have identity column as 2. So you can see it is incrementing by 1 always, and that's what the default thing is. It increments by 1 and starts by 1. Now let's say work object DDL 8. So let me delete this object. I don't need this. So I want some more things here. So I used generated always, where I cannot provide the value to the identity column. Now I have some other optional keywords as well which I can use, as like identity column start with as what we saw in the spool. As you can see, I can show you. This is what I'm doing, not in spool, that's in the DSP-FFD information. Oh, do not have the object. Let me compile that again. So you can see, start with, these are optional things which I can provide, but if I do not provide, the default would be like this. For the data type big integer, we can have maximum value this. For data type integer or small int, this value would be changed. So start with increment by min value, max value, cycle or no cycle. These things I can use. These are the optional keywords which I can use. Let me quickly delete this object so that I can create a new one. I can drop it from the SQL as well by dropping that table. So let me have those keywords here. So within bracket, start with, let's say I want to start the identity column with 2, and I want the increment by. So if I want, I can have only these things, starts with 2. So let me show you this. So if I do this, I can have the object created. You can see generated always starts with 2, current start with 2, increment by 1, minimum value 2, and max value is 2. So now let me insert some records. So you can see the identity column starts with 2. If I insert another record, it will increment it by 1 and we will have the identity column 3. So you can see all these things. Let's delete the object again. Have some more things like increment by. Let me have increment by 2. Is default increment by 1. So let's have the increment by 2. So I'm showing you all these things one by one. Let me show you the DSP-FFD information first. So starts with 2, current start with 2, increment by 2, and minimum value 2 or the max value is this. Let me have the strSQL session. So if I insert the first record here, I can see it's start with 2. I insert the second record, it incremented by 2. So you can see the identity column value is now 4. That's incremented by 2. If I insert next, it will be 6. You can see we are getting what we are achieving, the things what we are providing as an input to the identity column. Now let's say I want some more things that like min value. I want the min value to be let's say I want the minimum value to be 0, but it starts with 2. So if I use start with 2 and minimum value is 0, so I can have that. But if I start with, let's say 5 and I have a minimum value of 10, it's not possible. So I can have the minimum value 2 as well. And let's have the max value. Let's say max value is, let's say 4. Okay, and here is something which I want to show you, is the cycle or no cycle thing, that is cycle. So if I use the cycle, this is the minimum value which can be populated with system. This is the max value. If I use cycle here, what happens, once the max value reached, then it will try to provide the min value again, so restarts with the first value again. If I do if I have no cycle, it won't start with the next one. So let me show you. First thing is no cycle. Just show you DSP-FFD information. So start with 2, increment by 2, minimum value 2, max value 4, and cycle no. strSQL, there are no records now. Let's insert this. So 2, let's insert this 2 4, but the max value is 4, I think, so it won't go. Beyond that, because we didn't use the cycle thing. Value for entity column or sequence not available to insert. So this is what you get because you use no cycle here. But if we have used the, let's say cycle here, then it will start again from the 2. But or what I would do, I must not use cycle, because if I had made that table as or that column and column as a primary key, and I use cycle, what happens, it will restart again from the initial value if all the records have been populated with that, or all the id columns max values being used. So that's not the way we will go for, but that there is a concept of cycle, so I'll be showing you that. So just delete this object again and just compile this. Let me show you the DSP50 information. You can see cycle is yes. Now try to insert some records, E2, D2. So you have 2 records now. 4 is the max value, but I use cycle. So at the earlier when I use no cycle, so I won't be able to insert the record. Let me try this. This is a duplicate key. Let's have this one. So you can see the record gets inserted. So this is using 4. So it is not providing that value. Okay, so all those things now you can see. So this way it's going on, and you won't be able to. So we should not use cycle in this case. If it's a primary key column, so I deleted this. So I'm showing you different ways to do this. Now the another thing is id call big integer generated always. So in case of always, I would be using by default as identity, and all these things are same. Cycle, no cycle, everything else, every concept is same with always, or means all these optional things are same for always, generated always, or generated by default, but the difference is here by default or always. So start with 2, increment by 2, min value, max value, cycle, no cycle, things all are same. So they behave the same way. But thing here is, in generated always, I cannot provide the value to the identity column itself, because that would be generated by the system itself automatically. But here in generated by default, what I can do, if I provide the value to that thing, if I provide the value, it will be overridden. Means if I provide the value to the identity key column, that will be used, and system generated and identity key column value won't be used. Or if I do not provide, it will be supplied by the system then. So now all these things are waste for me, because if I provide the value, it won't go with this, because system will follow this rule, not me. So if I'm inserting 1, because min value is 2 and I'm inserting 1, that would be possible. Let me show you this. So you can see the object gets created successfully. This is the thing, and generated is by default now. Just try to insert some records. So if I do not provide the value, it go with the system way, which I mentioned. Let me change this. Let me provide the value as 0. Okay, the duplicate key issue. Let's have this. You can see I would be able to provide a 0 value to the identity key column. So even I can have the multiple these values like this. Okay, you can see I can provide that value. So if I provide the value to the identity key column, then it will be used. If I do not provide the value, then the system generated value would be used, whatever we have provided here, that is starts with 2 or these two. So if I do not provide all these information, the default start with 1, increment by 1, minimum value is 0, 0 or 1, a max value is up to the max value that can be provided to the data type, that is big int, or if you use small int to that up to that level, or if you use integer up to that level. So this is the main concept of the identity key column. You can make it a key, like I make this column as a unique key. I can make this a primary key. So this way the identity key column behaves. So there are multiple concepts that it can be generated always, or it can be generated by default. It starts with some value, incremented by some value. It has some min max value, min value, max value, or the cycle or no cycle thing. So all these things are now clear to you, I think. And thank you for watching my channel.